Thanks,
Joanne.
Jim. And thank you, Lisa and Joan, for your most beautiful, moving talks. I love hearing about our members and how wonderful they are. And to me, one of the greatest selling points of Buff is just our members and people I want to bring to Buff. I love to have them meet Buff members because I feel like that's the greatest selling point we have. But I want to talk a little bit about devotion. That's been somewhat of a topic throughout the month, beloved community. And in fact, we talked about devotion and commitment in our second service this month. Devotion is a word we don't often hear in the UU Church. Growing up in the Catholic Church, I remember members would carry out devotions, which are rituals and worship practices in honor of God or the saints. And these can be multi-day prayers such as novenas, the veneration of saintly images, saying the prayers of the rosary, or honoring the stations of the cross. And many Christian churches have devotionals, which often come in the form of a book or pamphlet with daily readings of Bible verses, accompanied by a short essay or a prayer. And one will often read these and then reflect or meditate on them. Other faiths show devotion through fasting and prayer. Some go on a pilgrimage to a holy place. Others venerate holy objects. Many believe that the most sacred acts of devotion take place in secret, not to engender the admiration of others, but to express our love in private. Because the word devotion doesn't come up a lot in the UU Church, Lisa Fuller and I were surprised to hear a fellow Unitarian Universalist using the word in a recent training session. The trainee introduced herself as a devoted member of her congregation, which struck both Lisa and me as rather touching. This led me to wonder, do we have devoted members in our fellowship as well? And if so, what does that mean? When we are passionately dedicated and loyal to someone or something, we call it devotion. Usually we, the devoted, spend significant time and energy focused on the object of our devotion. And devotion implies an emotional component, not just a rational commitment, but a love and attachment to something outside of ourselves. Our actions spring from the heart rather than from a sense of obligation or fear. In fact, we take great pleasure in our devotion. We give freely of ourselves. We sacrifice willingly. And often we experience joy and inspiration simply being in the presence of our object of devotion. In our beloved community, Buff, I see so many acts that I would view as nothing less than devotion to our principles and to one another. For one, Lisa's evangelism. I see Buffers routinely sacrifice their own comfort and interest to care for others, to care for causes and people in our community. And I'm just going to throw out some examples, and these are not at all comprehensive. I know I'm leaving people out, so please forgive me. I see Jim Fuller, Charles Long, and Harvey Johnson repairing our leaking hot water heater without being asked or recognized, and that's a form of devotion. Diane and Beth cleaning the Buff building before use by others is devotion. Dane and Tara clearing out an area of our grounds and hosting bonfires is an act of devotion. Joan collecting clothes for immigrant families. Clark, Nancy, and Catherine engaging Buff in various social justice activities. Gloria sewing face masks for Buffers and the decorative quilts for our sanctuary. Diane setting up an ethical eating group at Buff and planning an ethical sack lunch for the soup kitchen, and many Buffers assisted with that project. Lisa, Beth, and others running errands and delivering meals to Buffers who are ill. The Green Sanctuary team so lovingly caring for our grounds and gardens. Buffers putting together song videos or chalice lighting videos. Buffers who sacrifice a weekly night out or a movie subscription so they can pledge generously and support our operations. Buffers who help assemble and deliver RE kits or member gift bags since the pandemic. The list goes on and on. When a new member joins this loving community, they become both a source of devotion and inspiration, as well as a recipient. I read an article by Gail Brenner on devotion, and I'd like to wrap up by sharing a quote from that article with you. Now, I realize that devotion isn't the impediment I once suspected. It is a superpower. It infuses life with love, connection, and meaning. Ask yourself, how can I be of service? Show your devotion through prayer, ritual, picking up trash on your hike, or not engaging in destructive or weakening behaviors like gossip, junk food, or toxic relationships. Remember, we will become devoted to one thing or another. Make it intentional. When we live with devotion to a force greater than ourselves, we not only add more harmony and ease to our lives, we also make the world a better place. Thank you.